goals, talking about database management, lead generation, and then creating and starting the process of building a team, or if you already have a team, what it looks like to take it to the next level, but really the talent portion that goes with it. So with those kind of topics in mind, and could I have a pen to write here?
Yeah, inside this drawer.
Awesome.
Pick your color.
Orange. All right, so with that in mind and these things, what are, obviously you guys saw the flyer, what are items you were hoping you'd be able to walk out of here with a little bit more knowledge on, specifically?
Leverage.
Leverage. What does that look like to you? What does that mean?
Just doing the things I don't want to do, so I have time to do what I'm supposed to do.
What else?
The path you took to get to where you are now.
Me?
Yeah.
My path? All right. Well, I don't know how much we're going to talk about it, but we can save that part for the end. All right, my path. I appreciate that. Anything else that's important that we cover?
Hiring great talent.
What does that mean? Or what specifically about that?
Well, I'm curious if you've done the recruit select. I keep hearing that, and I just don't want to waste my time with the wrong talent, or hiring the wrong talent, or seeing what we've done.
Awesome. We'll touch on that as well. Yeah.
I'm very interested in database management and how, like, what specific systems that you utilize for that, and then also maybe how you categorize different, clients within the database management.
Did you read ahead or something? This is perfect. Awesome. So database and categorization. Nice stuff.
On hiring, how you found people that apply.
Any other burning topics? Yeah.
Just what keeps you motivated?
I'm gonna have to keep an eye on the clock because a lot of this is gonna fall into the last section. So we'll have to keep me on track. Awesome. If there's anything that pops up, we'll add it to the list as we go. Okay. So let's start with, there we go, database. All right, so we learn in, do we have the flyers for everybody that I had printed out?
Courtney should have those. Let me make sure.
Awesome. If we could bring those in, that would be great. That way you guys have something to take notes on if you choose. I'm a note taker, so I figured I'd mirror the class lesson how I like to do things, because you get to do that when you're teaching it. So MREA teaches us that there's 4 different kind of laws that we should have when building a database. First is that we build it. So trying to get a pulse of where everybody is in the office. Has anybody been in the business, let's say, less than 1 year? Okay, a couple, less than, so like 2 to 5. Almost everybody else, and then more than 5. Cool. Yay, what a cool mix. This will be super fun. Okay, so for people who have been in the business a while, the class was built to not as much focus on the basics, but to remind us of why the basics are important. So I would say please don't tune out in this because it all has a purpose. But for people who are newer, building a database is a very real thing. If we don't have a structure to go off, where are we going to take it from them? So MREA teaches us we should have one of 3 target numbers. The first is a database of METs, people that we have met with before, interacted with before. That could be friends, family, neighbors, your college alum, whatever that looks like, a list of people that you have. MREA would suggest that in order to be a millionaire real estate agent, that list should have 1,920 people on it. That, on average, millionaire real estate agents have a database right around there. Flip side could be, maybe you just moved here. You don't have a database, or maybe not a database like that. So we could have then a database of people we haven't met. MREA would suggest that if you're going to go with that route, that we need to have 16,000 people in that database. 1920 is a lot to get right off the bat. 16,000, also a lot to get right off the bat. So they would also suggest perhaps maybe a mix thereof. People you already know, people you don't know. 960 and 8,000 would be what that perfect combo is. So, what is your goal then? What's the short-term goal of where you guys want to be? So that would first be taking kind of an inventory. Where do you think you are now in your database? Is that, obviously we don't have it in front of us, and most agents probably don't know to the T, but is that, are we at 500 people in the database, 100 people in the database, 1,000 people in the database? Where have we come from? And then where do we want to go? I know it can be overwhelming to think of, oh my gosh, if I need 1,900 people in my database, and right now I have, say, 200. I'm not a millionaire real estate agent right now. The book suggests that if you do 3 contacts a day for 3 years, that would be going from 0 to 1920. I'm guessing even maybe our newer agents probably have a database of at least some people. So nobody's starting from scratch. Where can we build off to go on to? And then how many do we need to bridge that gap? That's very basic. Okay, feed it every day. Every day, every day, every day. So that kind of goes back to building the database and then the time frame we're looking at. The big one here would be selecting a goal. So does anybody feel ballsy enough to use their, did we get them?
There wasn't an attachment on that email.
I apologize then, that's so strange. Well then we don't need.
Is there something that I could find for you in the back
It
end?
on there, I'm so sorry. No, that's okay.
Okay.
There's nothing, it's all on here. It was just to keep people guided. Okay, so if it's overwhelming, yes, that would make sense. So who has kind of a good idea of what they have in their database right now? Yeah.
2,900.
Okay, terrible example. You're gonna have to help me out here. We're looking way above and beyond. Well then what about, and we'll get to that in the next kind of section about how can we refine our database. I too have a very large one, and so then it becomes also a factor of quality, not just quantity. Who has less than a database of 1920? Awesome. How many do you have in there?
Probably 300.
300? Awesome. So we're 1620-ish away. And then if you could create a time frame, when would you want to hit the 1920? How long do you want to build the database for?
Well, it'd be nice to hit it immediately, but that's
This
just not
week.
going to happen. Yeah.
I like your energy. So then that's the question at hand. If we don't have something to measure, we know it won't get done. So then the question is, how many do we want to add a day? Is that 3 a day like Gary suggests? And building up to that frame, is that 20 a week, which would obviously then be almost double of the 3 a day. And so creating a goal around that and helping to project us off of there. Make sense? Awesome. Communicate in a systematic way. So let's come down here and talk about that. How do you categorize your leads? How do you guys categorize your leads right now? Yeah.
Michael Mears Way, ambassadors and champions. That's how I've been doing it.
Beautiful. So the book that's being talked about, 7 Levels of Communication. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I call it, next to MREA, it would be my business Bible. I think that's a phenomenal way to do business. So yeah, we could essentially categorize people by either the likelihood that they're going to refer business to us. We could categorize them by maybe how we know them. We could categorize them by time frame is another option. I myself have my clients categorized in a few different ways. I use eEdge to answer your question about what form. I know we have a couple not KW people in here, but the majority are KW. Okay, so I'm going to speak KW's language, and if you don't get it, just raise your hand and let me know. So eEdge is our CRM software, and we have a couple different categories. The first would be time frame. So lead, hot, active, inactive, sold. I think that's it. I specifically use lead, active, inactive, and sold. Lead to me is somebody that I need to be following up with every Monday. That's when I do my lead follow-up that can be less consistent, or not less consistent, but less frequent than maybe every other day or something like that. Active for clients I'm currently actively working with, so I can easily pull down and drop down and grab all of them at once. And then inactive for pretty much anybody else that I'm not regularly talking to. And then that would bring up the second category. That would be that area where it says buyer, seller, buyer/seller, agent, investor. Trash might be in there as well. And so for me, a subcategory is important like that. Buyer/seller is a catch-all for me, for everybody else. But if you're doing lead generation, I focus on a lot of FSBOs. So So if we're talking about working with FSBOs, I always want to make sure I have them categorize sellers versus buyers so I can drop those down easily. And then right in eEdge is also category subcategory. So then we can go through and have a seller who's a FSBO, I can actually search FSBO and it'll pull all those sellers up that meet that criteria. How often are we communicating with the database? What about you guys? How do you communicate with your database and how often would that be?
Well, can I ask a question? So
Yeah.
how important is it to categorize your contacts, and why is it super valuable to do that?
I think, what's your name in the back? Remind me?
Mark Captain.
Mark. I think Mark would probably agree that once your database gets so big, it's now so overwhelming. When you have 50 in there, it's probably pretty easy to think back and how do I know this person? Where were they last time I was talking to them? But if you have, let's say you're actively working 60 leads at a time, trying to figure out were they a buyer or a seller, where did I, like all of the mush just gets lost and is absolutely worthless. Especially if you, let's say, meet somebody door knocking tomorrow, and then a year and a half they call you, and you have to think back, like, where did we even communicate in the first place? Helpful to look back on. That's probably one of the things people ask, like, oh, what would you go back and do over if you could? My database was worthless until about 6 months ago. I mean, names in it are good, and people to email and call are great, but actually making use of that, not as helpful when it's not properly categorized. We also subcategorize ours then by databases they're on. So we have an email that goes out to just our clients in general, people that don't really have a category, so those would be the buyer/sellers. So they go into an all email list. We also have a list for our profit share, so people that were interested in bringing in the Keller Williams and educating them on our models, that would be a list that we have. We also have one for, we do it, about 30% of our business every year comes from KW agent referrals, so referrals across the US. So we have our own database and email for them. And those
You
are,
get 30% of your business is referrals.
yeah.
So how does that look like for you? Wait, how are you using your database to make sure that that's happening for you?
So we do, it used to be, when I say we, myself and my executive assistant are who's on our team. And so we now often means Ashley, because it's something that I've now been able to leverage out. So Ashley sets up our email touch campaign that goes out to those people. So they hear from us once a month, just touching base. They're really cute pieces that are in eEdge as well, like cute little signs or little things that she's designed. It's pretty easy to get a touch campaign up and running for referrals. So we have that, and then Ashley also calls the database about once a quarter to check in. We always call starting with our focus on them. Hey, how's your business going? We wanted to clean everything up to make sure we're kind of best maximizing our opportunity to send you leads. What areas do you service? What's a good referral for you right now? Who could we kind of focus on? And it's funny because not only is it helpful to pour into them, but it's also helpful for my brain. And it's also ironic. I mean, what you focus on expands. So we'll call someone from, let's say, New Mexico, and they're focusing on Albuquerque or whatever the case may be. And then a week later, I run into someone from Albuquerque, and it brings to my mind a lot easier. So we do the calls and the emails, and then I go to everything and anything under the sun. So actually seeing those people face to face is really what makes the big difference. The majority of our closed have been some sort of meaningful relationship I've established, not really people who are just on a touch campaign.
Yeah. So these are people that you're meeting at maybe camp, dining, and things like that.
Yeah, and those things are great, but not really just the people you meet there. So going to a class is helpful. But like, so I remember the time that I most remember you from was when we were at Mega Camp, and the very last day there, everybody went to a lunch, and I got to sit down and have lunch with you. So that's how I remember you, but I mean, I probably could have ran into you some other time. And so when you actually have the opportunity to connect with someone deeper, that's really what pays the dividends. It's not like, and no offense to maybe anybody who does it, but not the card passer outer at the entrance to all of the classes or something. I'm sure it's a powerful way to get business, but if we're talking about quantity over quality or quality over quantity, sometimes that's a way to feed through the garbage. We also try to really be givers when it comes to giving out our referrals. So if I have 4,000 people in my referral database, I can't equally be pouring into those people. I need to make sure I'm focusing on one referral partner for a certain area, whatever that looks like. Got it?
Yeah.
Cool. So how else are you guys communicating with your database? Is there something else that's maybe more unique or more something that stands out that's meaningful to you?
Yeah, so once upon a time, 2003, I started a cash flow club around the game Cash Flow when I was living here, and it grew to 1,200 members.
Wow.
So I wasn't an agent, active as an agent. I had a license at the time, but that wasn't my focus. But it brought a lot of opportunity, a lot of successful people in. But I kept putting on events. So like Michael talks in 7L, you have that certain people you focus on, but then you got different levels of communication, the one-on-one being the most important. But the next one would be, well, how else can you spend time with people that you want to see you and bump into and shake hands with, versus just phone calls and, handwritten notes and things like that. So by putting on events, every month or every couple weeks or whatever, and inviting everybody into it, one, I've got a good excuse to email in the first place that they want to hear about, and then I get to see a percentage of my database every month.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and they aren't always the ones I want to spend one-on-one, but that also helps me figure out who I want to spend one-on-one with, because they come bugging me for one-on-ones.
Yeah, I agree. We'll also talk about mind share in real estate, and I think that's a great way to get mind share in real estate.
Yeah.
What about does anybody do pop buys in here? Or have done them? Pop buy, is anybody not familiar with what a pop buy is? Okay, so a pop buy is the idea.
Oh, pop, yeah, I got it.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So I know that.
I thought you said pot pie or something.
Has anyone done a pot pie before? That's hilarious. So that's a great way that I've seen a lot of agents pour in meaningful ways to try to connect with other people. I know we did those, especially when my database was a lot smaller. We did a lot of pop buys. They're great to use on past clients as well. People that you already have done business with is helpful. And then how often? How often are we communicating with these people? I know we learn the 8x8 campaign, 8 touches in 8 weeks, is a good systematic way. 33 touch campaign, which is a combo of handwritten notes, emails, phone calls, 33 touches in 1 year. The 12 direct for people that we don't know as well, so maybe that's a geographic farms. Anyone geographic farming in here? Yeah? Awesome. Tell me, how did you pick your community?
I first started with my own community. I'm just a new agent, and then I also looked at ones that are maybe similar to my own that have high turnover rates.
Bingo! I love it. Very cool. So what kind of a turnover rate were you looking for? Were you just taking kind of more general numbers?
I was looking from like 12 to 15%.
Beautiful. Fabulous. I believe Kenny Klaus says anything over 7% is something that can at least be considered. So 12 to 15
my
sounds
own
awesome.
community was like 7%, so that's why I wanted to get something a little bit higher to kind of combine them.
Very cool. And how many homes are in the 2 farms?
400.
Very cool. So it's doable, manageable, which is especially something difficult to do, lead with revenue when you're first starting out. How long have you had your license?
2 months.
That's awesome. Look at you go. Very cool.
And then I've done a combination of mailing those out and then door knocking.
Beautiful. I know that was something that I did a lot of when we started the farm. They say, come on in. Hey, Dan. No.
No, I have stuff to do, but I just want to see. Good crowd.
So when I started my farm, I did the same thing because they say it takes 7 to 12 touches to get your first piece of business. Well, if those touches are face to face instead of a piece of mail, then how much more effective can we be? That's wonderful. Good for you. That's phenomenal. Awesome. So I think the key question to this area is how often. If it's not systematic, it's not going to work. So regardless of what our plan is, 8x8 or 33 or more often or less frequent, whatever it looks like, we just need to make sure we have a time frame on it. Service all leads that come your way. All leads. So you guys are down here at the end of the earth. No offense. Oh my gosh, thought I was gonna fall asleep driving here. And somebody calls you who wants to look at a house in North Peoria. Then what? What do you do for that lead? We can service it, right?
Refer it out.
Yeah, you could refer it out. You could, I guess servicing or referrals are probably 2 main options that we would choose. But the point is, we have to do something with it. We can't just let it fall to the wayside, regardless if it's something rental in North Peoria. You guys are down here. I don't think that would be top of your list. But when we don't service it, or if we don't come up with a solution for them, what does that tell the person who sent us the referral?
Don't send us another one.
I know we do a lot of referral business even outside of real estate. Like if someone needs, here's an example, if someone needed a pool guy. We have a house in Ahwatukee right now on the market, and I have a great pool guy. His name's Seth, nice guy. And call Seth, and he says that would be great, and I send him the address. Let my client know it's all taken care of, don't need to worry about it, and then he calls me back 30 minutes later to let me know he doesn't service Ahwatukee. Well, I'm not going to be keeping like your locations top of mind. I need somebody who can do everything for me. And I think our clients look at us that way too. You're my real estate professional, so I'm going to count on you for real estate, and then you can figure it out from there. It's not my job to figure that out for you. Awesome. Any questions on database so far? We talked about categorization.
So you would want your pool guy to go find another pool guy who services.
Yep, that would be the ideal solution for me. If you're not going to cover it, then just set it up with someone who will, because now you're putting something more on my plate by having me now go back to my client, let him know that didn't work out, but then I have to go find someone else for him, and it adds a lot to our plate. So when we're talking about leveraging and giving away as much as we can, that's a very quick way to get something back on your plate that maybe you don't want. Not a way to win with me, that's for sure. Awesome.